What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the Bitcoin and crypto market Giga Squeeze. Now, the Giga Squeeze is something that is starting to form some sort of narrative. I keep seeing it around in the crypto space. So we're going to watch a few clips and talk about what is coming in the crypto markets. Now, today you can see that the markets have just, in the crypto space, have just skyrocketed up to the moon. We went from 21.5 all the way up to, we're still climbing at around 24.5 right now. So I've been looking at that and watching it today, but I wanted to talk about where we could potentially go in the short term. So if that sounds interesting to you, please hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and smash the notification bell to get all the latest updates. Let's jump into it. Okay, so the first clip that we're going to be watching is a clip from Raoul. You guys know who he is. He is the global macro investor. He has just gotten into the crypto world. You know, his mantra is crypto is macro. He's very invested in the space, in NFTs, into Web3, and this is what he's seeing for Ethereum specifically.
But this Shanghai fork means that liquidity is available to any staker at any time. What does that do? That creates a money market curve for Ethereum, which is like, you know, people use CDs and they use 2-year bonds and they use this. This is what we're going to create. And that means you have financial liquidity to build things on top of, or you're incentivized to keep your money and stake it because you know you can get it back at any time, as opposed to some arbitrary date in a year's time when you don't know what the crypto market's going to look like. So I'm going to stake my stuff if I can then. And particularly if I can do it myself, which might be a little more difficult to do, but it's in my control. Nobody can default on me. It's in the smart contract, and I'm going to get my money. So this is a very, very big innovation for what can be built on top of Ethereum. It's also a very, very important mechanism to what Ethereum has created, which is it now has this burning mechanism that is making it scarcer in supply. And we've seen that just coming off the bear market lows, the early stages of spring, the first shoots, the bloody thing went negative issuance already, deflationary. I'm like, huh. And right now, there's only 16% of all ETH is staked. And if you think of staked ETH as taken off the market that nobody can use for derivatives or anything else, right? So you can't create, you know, financial products out of it. Well, all the other big ecosystems like Solana and stuff have up to 40 to 60% staking. So let's assume Ethereum gets to 40%, 35%. So doubling at least of the number of people who've taken Ethereum out of supply. And imagine that's happening in this spring going to summer. There ain't any ETH. This is a problem. It actually, I think it may be such a problem in a bull market that it's either going to force massive upside volatility spikes that become kind of unmanageable, or if it does drive up fees so much, then obviously it bleeds into the layer twos.
Now, someone else who we have not really talked about on this channel is Greg Foss. He's someone that I've stumbled upon recently, and I'd like to introduce you to him on my channel. Pretty smart individual. He's a Canadian. And you can just see what he's saying about Bitcoin and crypto. A lot of his mantra is that fiat is basically a melting ice cube, and it's going to zero over the long term. There's no way out of this debt crisis other than just continuing to print money to debase the debt. But there's no way to come back from a $32 trillion deficit. So he goes on into why Bitcoin is an important allocation into any reasonable portfolio to diversify your risk. He actually argues that there are no risk-free assets. And in a world where we're printing endless fiat dollars, treasury bonds, which once were wielded as basically zero risk assets for retirees, are now not zero risk. and they should be taken with as much scrutiny as anything else. He actually argues that counter narrative to Bitcoin these days is that Bitcoin is actually the lowest risk asset that you can own based off of its intrinsic properties. So if you're not into this, you really need to look. The only thing people get scared about is the volatility, and they relate volatility to risk, which I think they need to be decoupled. And you need to look at the fundamentals of what it actually is from an engineering standpoint. Bitcoin is the perfect money. And if you don't have any allocation to Bitcoin in your portfolio, I think you're making a mistake, because you're basically banking on the banks, the government, and everyone else to do their best job in protecting your monetary and fiat-based assets that you have in your 401ks and everything else these days. So, Greg Foss, we're going to listen to him for just a second, and then we're going to conclude the video. So watch this.
I need to stress to everybody, all fiat currencies are melting cubes. It's just a relative rate of decay that is represented in the DXY. So the DXY means that the US dollar is not, it's certainly debasing, and it was debasing far less severely than the Japanese yen and the euro. But since the Japanese moved their peg on their yield curve control, that has caused the yen to strengthen. So we all know that it's a race to the bottom in fiats. What this really reminds me of, more than anything, is absolute denial of mathematics. So it reminds me of grade 11, where people don't understand the mathematics of a Lynn Alden tweet, for example, that I thought was the most brilliant that I've seen this year. And she sarcastically says, I can't believe the Fed published this, which showed a GDP level of debt to GDP that the Fed is projecting going forward, as if it's natural to have 400% federal debt to US federal GDP, or excuse me, US GDP. So let's go back to some mathematics. Larry said, and I know he misspoke, because he said total gold market was 400 trillion. No, total financial assets in the world are between 400 trillion by Larry's methodology and 900 trillion by my methodology, because I'm a debt guy. I put all debt in there. Think of enterprise value versus market cap, okay? Nonetheless,
Gotcha.
We're splitting hairs when Bitcoin is 350 billion of a potential total addressable market somewhere between 400 trillion and 900 trillion dollars. We're getting too smart by a half in terms of how much Bitcoin could address this whole market. So I'm not going to argue with Larry over that. The only thing I'm going to agree with him on is that it's a spiral that cannot be solved. You have to print money. It is the error term. It's the only way of solving this runaway debt spiral, where your debt burden is building organically because of the coupon on the debt. Okay, guys? If you don't understand that, you failed grade 11 math. So everybody's running around trying to split hairs. And the reality is, quantitative easing infinity, QE infinity, is built into the mathematics. It always has been, and the Fed can pretend they're going into QT for the short term. It doesn't work in the long term. So there will be a solution where the Fed has to blink and admit, we have to print forever. So don't take your allocation to Bitcoin out of your gold basket. You take your allocation to Bitcoin out of your fixed income basket, because fixed income is a contract, and it's a debasing contract. It's built in fiat, and fiat is programmed to debase. So what are you going to take your allocation to Bitcoin? I don't care if there's Bitcoiners that don't like gold bugs and gold bugs who don't like Bitcoiners. You guys are missing the bigger picture here. It's so much bigger than the combination of gold and Bitcoin. It's about a Fed projection where they think it's normal that they're going to be able to borrow 4 times their revenue base or their GDP. That's going to solve this debt spiral. This is what blows me away, Sam. We have never been here before. The point of no return is past, so we cannot compare this anywhere in history. It started with a financial crisis. We rescued the system. First time in my life was the Latin American debt crisis. That's the first time we kicked the can down the road. Then it was long-term capital management. Then it was the great financial crisis. And then it was COVID. And now it is over. You cannot compare this time to any other time because our debt burden is just so darn large. The mathematics don't allow it to be solved any other way. So we can look back to different periods, but the reality is we've never been here before in terms of a global debt burden that is so large compared to global GDP. And you can break that down by country, and you can say, oh my goodness, here's the crazy thing. In the end of World War II, the USA had a debt burden, just the federal debt, that was right around 100% of GDP or one times. Hey, the USA was a trade exporter then, a global exporter. It doesn't work when you are a global importer. So again, there's no other time in history because we have just been so irresponsible in building the debt burden. You can't compare it to any other time. I don't want it to go kaboom, but unless they keep printing forever, it goes kaboom. So there's one solution. Infinity, QE infinity. And we're going to pretend inflation doesn't exist because we're going to rewrite the definition of inflation to bring it down to this mythical 2%. Guys, inflation compounds, okay? Just because you can claim victory by bringing some stupid number down to a 2% annualized today, based on new mathematics, doesn't mean that you get out of jail for free for increasing it 15 or 25% annually on an equivalent basis a couple of years back. I have never been so sick to my stomach of the lying and fibbing that goes in. And anybody who's done any mathematics understands this, except they're not allowed to say anything because Ray Dalio gets on TV and says he doesn't think the solution is going to be Bitcoin, and then describes what he thinks the solution is going to be, and he fucking describes Bitcoin. Like, this is so asinine that I've never seen anything like this. So we are living in clown world 3.0. Okay, and the people running this clown world need to be challenged by the people who understand mathematics. And it's not difficult math, guys. It's grade 11 math. So please keep challenging these people. They're lying through their teeth. It cannot be solved any other way.
All right, guys, so to conclude the video, I hope you guys enjoyed Greg Foss, a little bit more Raoul. There'll be more of this content coming, and I hope you enjoyed some of the lessons taken away from this. It is important to diversify. Nothing is risk-free, and in a world where governments are printing endless dollars, I think the biggest takeaway here is to buy an insurance policy against the Treasury and get yourself a little Bitcoin and start looking into the rest of the crypto space, because this stuff is coming hard. It's coming fast, and the more you learn, the more you understand what it is, the more comfortable you will be with putting some money in. Regulations coming, CBDCs are coming. So guys, get on the train, because the train is leaving, whether you're on it or not. We'll see you next time. Have a good one.